Hi, Sonia Clark here, just bringing you some tips on reverse engineering. Okay, so reverse engineering, working things out backward. When a lot of people don't realize actually that they often tend to do it. So when you're trying to forecast a particular goal, how do you then go about it and work it out backwards so then you know what to do, where to go, and how to do it? Let me give you an example. You've probably planned a really big party of some sort. So you know what that end goal is. And the most important things is to really work on your goalposts as far as what do they look like? What is success? When a lot of people say work out goals as far as the tangible is concerned, they know what a success is, what a good party is compared to a horrible party, what a great wedding is compared to a horrible wedding, what a great car an experience is like compared to a not so great car and a horrible experience. When we look at, say, our business, we really want to look at, well, what are our goals of success? And a lot of people will tend to go, oh, well, that's, X amount of money. And when we come to the money, is that just revenue? Is that just what's coming in at the top end of things? That's called your top line before all your expenses and everything of that is taken out of it. And then you're left with, and then taxes, and then you're left with the bottom line, which is your net. And there's a lot that can be said around that. So that's not always success. It depends on your model, your business model, and how long you plan on being sustainable for that business, and when do you want to start making a certain amount of profits. It's usually good to have it as a percentage rate. A certain amount of profits. It may look like a bit of a dollar amount at a certain time, but because of your variables, it's not always going to be super fantastic being a certain dollar amount, though that's easy to put it like that. So it's good to do a, say, dollar amount, but also as a percentage worked out on what your baseline is. And then on from there. When we used to teach business, I've taught a lot of theoretical business and at unis and stuff. When we used to teach business, we would do business plans up to 20 years. That was a typical trajectory. And then it became 10 years, a few years later. All of a sudden we're teaching 10 years. And then just a few years later, we're teaching 5 years. And we sort of looking at that, with the whole pop-ups. And there was a lot of arguments like, is 5 years still good enough? Huge amount of arguments for that. Well, let's not go into that. But it tends to be that for people to put into action to get towards even that 5-year marking point, then to break it into, say, some main goals, they're being at a 3-year spot, because it's statistically businesses don't tend to do terribly well in the first 3 years, and after 3 years you've got some really good averages with your variables and your non-variables as far as your finance is concerned, and you have also some really good average stats with your supply and your demand that you can then know how to really leverage things and make a really great profit margin and then the next following 2 years. So your first 3 years are very, very important with your goalposts. So taking some of the fundamental principles of the first year, when you plan that out, I'd also add that to your third year. What I like to do is to recommend at least a 20% buffer zone. A buffer zone for your money, for your quality of your products / services, so your output, as well as for your time. And that's your triangle of constraints. So it'll be the money output as well as input, quality output more so, and then the time output and input. When you're looking at that will then give you your scope as to what are the things you need to do, what are all the things that need to be actioned. So they're your action steps. Now, because of those particular fundamental topics, concepts. With the triangle of constraints, you would put some major goals in and around that. And then from those major goals, so if you have, say, for example, you're looking at it in the 12 years, okay, we want to achieve this, 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 and this by then in 12 years. You would look at then breaking that down to, okay, do we divide that all by 4, say quarterly? Yeah, sure, you can do that. Break that down into 4. Add in your buffer. So 20%, personally, this is what my absolute hot tip. Add 20% per quarter then. All right, don't take your 20% and divide that into 4. Trust me, you'll love me for this little hot tip. Add an extra 20% per quarter, because you'll always come out smelling like roses if you can meet that and still have that 20%. And if not, if you take up that 20%, you still have movement, you've still got room for those other quarters coming up. And this is how I've helped be able to deal with forecasts and to leverage. Because if you've got 20%, that some of that is 20% per of those 3 of the triangle of constraints, 20% onto your time, 20% onto your quality, 20% onto your money, then there might have been a deficit in one of the quarters, or even if there's a deficit in the other 2, you have still got room to move for the other quarters to be able to then really put into play your contingency plan. So usually if there's a deficit in one quarter, you would probably look at more tweaks and maybe a contingency plan or half a contingency plan of plan A. If you're starting to look at 2 quarters, so 6 months worth, you may then look at, I need to do the full contingency plan A, and we've used up those buffers, so we really need to make sure that we leverage everything that we're doing, all the processes that we're doing in business for those other quarters. And I need to now look at testing and measuring, whether it be daily or weekly up until that point. So when you're testing and measuring and you're seeing, are we on track or are we not? If you're doing that daily, then all you're doing is just tweaking. That's been my secret in the past, that I then do it daily. If other managers or other business owners, they're doing it weekly, I'm doing it daily. If they're doing it daily, I'm doing it twice a day. It depends on the industry and the type of business, really. So some of the retail roles, they're so fast, you have to do it like that, and other ones, they're not as fast, so you don't have to do that. So when you have, say, looked at your year, you've quartered it up, every 3 months you've got those goals, you've added in some 20% contingency plans, a buffer of time, with your quality, and buffer with your time, quality and money. Oh yeah, can't forget that. Then you can look at then how often are you going to come in and check and measure it. Excuse me. What is your plan of attack per quarter? Then within per quarter, in a 4 weeks, you then look at, okay, am I going to come in and look at everything and test and measure it at the end of every week or at the end of every fortnight? How am I going to let everything go up until the last, week and let 3 weeks slide? No, don't do that. Don't do that. A lot of people do that. Don't do that. And then do that. You might be able to do that, but a lot of staff or other processes might not be able to do that and keep up with you on that. And all you're doing is you're adding a whole lot of pressure on yourself. So don't do that. Do it out nicely. If you get past that 2 weeks and you're looking at 3 weeks and you're going, oh my gosh, I'm not really going to make these particular goals, that's when you're looking at getting some extra help. So you can look at virtual assistants to be able to help you. You reach out to experts. You really look, if athletes want to do well, and even if they're not major athletes that are creating huge amounts of money, every good athlete, pretty much every athlete that I've known ever, has a coach. So and some athletes will have a couple of coaches. Even in my the competitive sport that I did when I was younger, and yet it wasn't a big major thing. We would have two coaches. We would have one that is for the calisthenics coach, as well as we would be doing ballet on the side, and so therefore we have ballet coach. When I did ice skating, I'd have the ice skating coach, and they would have someone else that perhaps would help with either technique, an outsider coach technique, and then another outsider coach technique, dealing with the aesthetics, and then you're also doing ballet, and then you're also doing trampolining. So, and there's all coaches that way just to help you with ice skating to be successful with that. So think about that in business. What are the types of help that you need to help you get to your big end goal? Or if you need to break it down just for a short period of time in a certain quarter. You set those goals, you've got your buffers, and I tend to like to slice up my 20% in per week. Yeah. So then I'm doing the same sort of theory as per week, that I'm not leaving everything to the last bit of the week. I'm doing everything in the first hour or 2 or 3, in the first 1, 2, 3 days. So, day 4, day 5, I've got some moving time. I'm getting my tongue tied now. So then what you can do is, okay, what does that success look like? At that goal, what is that? What are those success criteria? Success criteria with quality, just output. What are the success criteria with output of quality? What are the success criteria with input and output of money? What are the success criteria of input and output for time? Then you can work it backwards and say, okay, well, if that's success criteria, let's say if it's time, the success criteria, got the itches now. Success criteria is, I need to half my time because I waste too much doing administration work. So success criteria would be spending half that amount of time per week on it. Okay, now that I know that, I can reverse engineer it backwards and say, well, how many hours am I going to dedicate per day per task? And if I was to crunch that down and try to make that even slimmer without me pulling my hair out, is it better that I actually leverage it and get an expert, say, like a virtual assistant to do that? And at least even if it's X amount of hours per month or per quarter, then I'm saving myself X amount of hours that I normally spend twice that amount of time. So when I'm saving that time, how can I dedicate that into making more money or training my staff better? Okay, so if I'm putting that towards making more money, am I going to be putting that towards advertising? Am I going to be putting that into something that's slower but a lot stronger, which is word of mouth or referrals? And you can look at trying to leverage some of your other systems that you've got, systems and processes. Okay, so then when you're working it backwards as to, well, what does that look like? What's involved? What are all the action steps? Okay, now I know exactly now moving forward, I know exactly the steps I have to take. Yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that, but I know that's not going to meet that objective. I just need to get from point A to point B quickly and swiftly. When I get there, then I'll look at it and I'll test and measure it, or will I give myself a bit of an out? So say, for example, I have this analytical side to me, but I also have this really creative side to me. But I know that the creative side to me and doing some creative stuff like working with marketing, improving my website, all those sorts of things takes me a lot longer. So to try to facilitate on that, I'll try to outsource as much as I can for some really big fundamental stuff that I know that takes me way too long. And then with the little fun fluffy stuff, I will reward myself if I've stayed on my other paths from A to B as fast as possible. And if I've achieved that, I will reward myself with 1 hour working on my creatives. You can do things like that as well. So that just gives you some tips with working on my laptop nearly wanted to shut down then. Yeah, no, we're still recording. Okay, there you go. That just gives you some tips on how to plan some things out for you and how to reverse engineer, how to think a little bit differently with being a business owner. Being a business owner has a lot more things involved than just doing the craft itself. And so it's a completely different hat that you've got to put on. If you are a business owner where you have to go off and do the craft, you have to learn how to put on business hat, then take that off and then put on craftsman's hat. Take that off and put on business hat. And it does take different skill sets. And when people are having to juggle that around, you're going to be wasting a whole lot of time, and I'm talking years as well as money, if you're just struggling and doing it on your own, believe me. So it's really best to get someone who can look at things really quite objectively and help guide you on those paths from point A, B, C, D, E, and help you get along there quicker. And seriously, coach, trainer, mentor, those sorts of things. So I hope that's given you some food for thought. Of course, I could deep dive on it, but I won't now. I think I've been talking long enough. I hope that's giving you some food for thought, some great ideas in there, some different tips that you can work on and look at how you can look at those various different things in a business sense way so that you are helping yourself to achieve the life you want. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. You know, we all want to achieve these things in life, and we want to try to have less pain along the way. So let's all help one another and support one another to get there. And it's certainly there with me if you want to reach out just to have a chat. Not a problem. Otherwise, let's get involved with one of the programs that I do have, one of the coaching programs. Let's get some like-mindedness happen and learn some of the fundamentals as well as the fun stuff in and around business. So keep well, stay well, and these little extra pocket trainings that I'm doing at the moment are going to help with business and for this survival of the coronavirus, as well as survival for anything that's thrown our way. You know, I have full faith that you'll be fine. It's just that sometimes when we get emotionally involved in business and then with listening to things that can panic us with other environmental factors, we tend to get a little bit of a blurred vision as to achieving the objective. So reach out, give me a hoy. I'd love to know where you're at and how I can assist you. And I will catch you later. Bye for now.